We also watched AEW Dynamite, December 4th, 2019. Open with a match, the Young Bucks and Dustin Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara and Proud and Powerful. I will start with the negatives, which is not the fault of anyone in the ring. Maybe it's just me, but the first half of this match...
No, there were bad audio issues.
Really bad audio issues. I thought it was my computer at first. I restarted everything. They kept on going.
So the story is that the audio issues... I actually have the exact deal here. AEW was told that satellites in Atlanta were out. So it was an issue with the feed going up onto the satellite.
All right.
As opposed to whoever was in charge of the audio in AEW being incompetent.
Sure.
So that is the story from the AEW side. But it was very distracting.
Yeah.
But it was only for about 10 minutes.
It went away by the end. So I'm watching this match, and it's a fantastic trios match. And halfway through, I'm thinking to myself, it's the year 2019. I'm watching a trios match on national television, and the best guy in this is Goldust. Dustin Rhodes was awesome in this match.
It's great.
Now, later, Nick Jackson made his comeback, and I'm no longer certain Dustin Rhodes is the best guy in the match, because Nick's comeback was unbelievable, too. There's so many dives the camera dude can't keep up. So it's time to go for the finish. Sammy Guevara, the world's most hateable prick. He has Matt Jackson laid out, but he can't just beat the man, he has to show off. So he goes to his phone to do some vlogging. And I have not checked it out. I assume this is actually done live, and this video is out there on his phone, and I must see this. And he goes, on TV, it looked really funny. Because what happened was, with the phone, he goes for a shooting star press and lands and meets a double super kick. And when you're watching on TV, it appears the Young Bucks were waiting for him. He just flipped jaw first into their feet, and you're thinking, what a dumbass. Now, Sammy Guevara himself shared a different camera angle that showed when he jumped, Matt was on the ground and actually jumped up to his feet and super kicked him. So, blame the TV director, or the director, I guess, but it did look goofy on TV. Regardless, Guevara's...
Well, dude, it looked goofy because the guy was going to live stream a dive.
That's also true.
That's the bigger issue.
Well, yes, but that's one more reason to not like him.
Well, I'll get into him in a second. But.
So, anyway, it leads to an even better finish where Dustin and Matt have their opponents, I guess it's Proud and Powerful, for tombstones. Nick jumps off, lands with one foot on each guy's ass, so they do a double stuff tombstone, and he legit landed on them, and then falls backwards in a senton onto Guevara and pins him. I should say so. This match ruled, everybody. I don't think I'm giving it nearly enough credit. As a wrestling match, I thought this was better than anything on NXT. Just a fabulous opener.
Match is great. Sammy Guevara, I've said it before, he is, and I mean this, the highest praise.
This is a high compliment we were about to say.
He is the greatest douchebag.
Yes.
Like, if you were a main eventer and you were going to live stream a dive in the middle of a match and it leads to your demise, like, you couldn't be a bigger geek, okay? But the difference is, he is in a main event unit, but he is not a main eventer.
Correct.
He is a guy who, every week, I can't wait to see him get his ass kicked.
Yes.
This is not Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin, he comes on television, I want to shut the show off. Sammy Guevara comes on, and he does this stupid thing, he does that stupid thing. It fits his character. His character is he's just the biggest douche. And he gets foiled, and he gets beaten every single week. And he's Wile E. Coyote. There's never the week where he wins.
That's true.
Every week he gets foiled for doing something stupid, and it's great every single time.
Now the announcers run down the show. Christopher Daniels versus Pentagon Jr. Brandy Rhodes speaks. Nyla Rose in action. What does Chris Jericho have to say?
That literally was how they had one of those big graphics that they put online to preview the show, and it literally said something like, "What will AEW World Champion Chris Jericho say tonight?" That's how they build it.
Yeah.
It's like, huh. Well, I don't know what he'll say.
Well, let's find out. Joey Janela versus Jon Moxley in our main event, and up next, Trent versus Rey Fenix.
Yes.
So we got Trent versus Rey Fenix. They had a lot of time. They did not have a lot of heat. Went about 10 minutes. Phoenix caught him with a cutter and a sitting muscle buster for the win. I hope they don't start doing 50-50 booking. And I am blanking on anything else to say about this.
Well, it was fine. It wasn't great, but it was very good. And that's it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. This is 10 minutes of satisfying but forgettable wrestling. Tony Schiavone interviews Cody. God, Cody was great here.
I just love that Tony, there's been all this criticism of AEW because MJF turned on Cody, and then it's been like 3 weeks now. Cody has not cut a promo on MJF. And the Blade and the Butcher debut, and they beat him down, and there's all this stuff, and like every critic has been saying he must cut a promo on MJF. So they go to Tony Schiavone, and Tony Schiavone just takes the mic and says, "We gotta talk about MJF." He's not fucking around.
Tony is a pro.
Tony knows what's up.
Yes. So Cody first addresses the scar over his forehead, which will always be there. He says it's a reminder of his failure. And then he says when he needed help, nobody was there. His brother is apparently involved in a blood feud with the Young Bucks. His wife is cutting off random people's hair. And MJF, he says, kicked me straight in the balls. He talks about the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny, and says, I know who you are. You're Andy Williams, Pepper Parks, and Allie. You've been in Beyond and Bar Wrestling. I thought, was that so hard?
No.
By the way, I mentioned I never heard of the Butcher and the Blade. I've heard of Andy Williams and Pepper Parks.
Hey.
They're already bigger stars.
I'll
now than
one up
last week.
you.
Yeah.
I worked a show with them.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. So now, it wasn't. The answer is no. It was not that hard to give me one sentence of information of why I should give these people credibility. It's much better than shouting, "It's the Blade, it's the Butcher." Then he says, "I know who you are. I know your credentials. All you had to do was ask for a match." He moves on to MJF. MJF is apparently refusing to wrestle him. Says he handpicked MJF when nobody else had faith in him. I've got all the texts. He says, I've got all the emails. Everyone said not to believe in you. They said you were too short. They said you were hood rich and that your scarf is a fake. They said you have the worst crossroads in wrestling, but at least they're botching it on 2 channels now. And I don't even know who's botching it on NXT, but I laughed really hard at that.
Could have been Raw.
It might have been Raw, yeah. That's true. He didn't say Wednesday nights. He said 2 channels.
No.
So finally, he says, they say you're nothing more than a Bush League NWO version of Chris Jericho. And the crowd goes batty for that line. They thought that was a sick diss. He says, they told me MJF was a bad guy. Well, I knew MJF was a bad guy, but you were my bad guy. So what do you want for a match, MJF? And he pulls out the keys to his Ford Black Ops. Big fancy truck. He says, I know you love this truck, MJF. Here you go. Tosses the keys down on the ground. This watch is a gift to me courtesy of Tony Khan. It's the most expensive thing on my body. He takes it off, throws it to the mat. There you go. His red bottom shoes. I learned a lot of things about trucks and shoes in this promo. Louboutin shoes, he says. I'll take these off. He throws them. You can have my shoes. And finally, he brings in Justin Roberts with a briefcase that contains $50,000 in cash. And to prove it's legit cash, he gives a $100 bill to the young fan dressed as him in the crowd. Maxwell, he says, I still believe you are the future of this business, but education is the passport to that future, and I am going to educate you. I'm going to eviscerate you. I'm going to lacerate you. Just name your price, he says. Let's do this. I'm not doing this promo justice.
No.
Cody was
You never do a great promo justice. That's why they're great promos.
That's why they're great promos. That's why they're doing promos in the ring, and I'm here doing a wacky podcast in Bothell. Cody's awesome. That's the important takeaway. Alex Marvez interviews Joey Janela. Why have you accepted John Moxley's challenge, he asks, when you know he could put you in a hospital bed? Janela says, I've got nowhere to sleep tonight, and a hospital bed sounds nice.
Well,
there's worse answers.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, he says, I want to make a name for myself. I was one of the first people to sign with AEW, Since then, I've been put on the back burner. John Moxley, he says, we fought at Fyter Fest, but this time it counts. And this time, he says, you'll actually have to kill me. Maybe he was listening to us talk about Booker T like on Nitro a month ago. And thank God Steiner did not actually have to kill him to take his title. Anyway, Moxley arrives, and they have a little stare down. Moxley looked 8 feet tall next to him. And he looks at Janela, he looks at Marvez, and he shrugs and says, kids, and he walks away.
Yeah.
We have the final Dark Order saga.
The final? We don't know if this is the
That's
final.
true.
It's the final for one guy.
The latest. It's the final for
Did
this
you
feud.
watch this, Ken? Did you watch this segment?
Yes.
So, first, some guy goes to the website.
That's true. Ken, you should be paying attention. Yes.
Yeah, some guy goes to the website, submits an entry, just like we did here on the show. And he says he hates everyone. Everyone laughs at him and treats him poorly. Next thing you know, he's in the forest, and they accept him into the cult.
They do, but their last question for him before they accept him is, what is your motivation?
Yes.
And he just says, revenge.
Yes.
And they give him a mask and send him into the woods to put it on.
So, next up is the fat nerd, as I believe you called him, Vinny.
That's what he is.
Yes.
Don't get mad at me.
I wrote the heavy-set fella. Anyway.
So,
He vows to disown his own family for the Dark Order.
yes.
And they say, well, what's your motive? And he says, I just want friends.
Wrong answer.
So Grayson kicks him. All of these creepers swarm on him. I don't know what they did to this guy. But from what I could determine, it ended poorly. So, point of all of this, Ken, is I thought this was all fun and games when we started this.
Yes.
I thought anyone can join a cult. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I didn't realize there was an initiation.
And a very violent rejection process.
Yes.
So this is important, Ken.
Yeah, you need to really think about this, Ken.
Well, let's practice right now. Ken, what is your motivation?
Not friendship.
Well, what is your motivation? You know the answer.
Revenge.
You
Yes,
say revenge, Ken.
revenge.
Yes, sweet revenge.
Now, have you gotten that lock of hair yet? What's taken so long? When did we talk about this? Sunday? Or was it a week ago?
It was a week ago.
No, it was Sunday.
Was it Sunday?
Yeah, because we got the response. We submitted the entry last week.
I see.
And we got the response. We read it on Sunday. So
Yes.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Been 4 days. Yeah. What's taken so long?
I've got some leads.
You have leads?
Yeah. It'll get done.
You better get it done, dude, because we don't know if the Dark Order has a time limit either.
I'll tell you what. I'll have it done by Sunday.
All right. Sunday here on
Really?
this show. Ken, you need what was it, a lock of hair or a vial of sweat?
Or a tooth.
Or a tooth.
Yeah.
I think you're better off getting a lock of hair.
Yeah, probably.
Have you talked to Garrett? It shouldn't be that hard.
That's a good
Garrett's your man.
lead. Okay.
All right. Let's
I'll
keep
message
going.
him on Twitter.
Yeah. And don't forget the special word, revenge.
Revenge.
Yes.
That's a good way to say it, too. Yes, that
He's already halfway in right here.
We've helped him tremendously.
Yes.
I feel good about this show now.
Start our own cult.
I kind of feel like we already have.
I got 2 little creepers in this house right now.
Nyla Rose versus Leva Bates. First, we see footage of Nyla attacking somebody named Shanna at a meet and greet.
Yes.
Now, I will say this. You have a woman named the Native Beast, and she grabs a blonde woman and shouts, Happy Thanksgiving, and powerbombs her through a table. I laughed and laughed and laughed. So, there's interference in this match. The other
Don't
librarians
even
being
get me
involved.
started with this match.
There's weapon shots left and right. None of these are DQs. And Nyla chokeslams both of them. Pins Leva with a powerbomb. Goes to give her another one. Shanna, whoever this is, attacks her. And I'm trying to figure out if Shanna has ever been on the show before.
Been on AEW Dark.
And that doesn't count.
Here's the thing, everybody. I'm not going to waste everyone's time with the same rant I do in every damn show. But if you don't want to do DQs, fine. But once a year, DQ somebody. It's just like New Japan. Once a year, they actually do a count-out. And so at least we know that you can be counted out. These announcers keep talking about how something is going to be a DQ. It's been 10 weeks. We've never seen a DQ. The inmates are running the asylum. Like, at some point, I'm going to start losing respect for the wrestlers who are following the rules.
Basically, yes.
So you need to DQ somebody. You need to create a consequence. They have to. And then if you don't want to DQ everybody, fine. But the easiest solution would be don't do this shit in your matches. And then you have to worry about not DQing people.
You know what? The more I think about this, apparently in the melee here, I missed it, but it was referenced later. Nyla destroyed Shanna and the referee, a powerbomb them both through tables.
Oh.
And so she's suspended. Okay? So if you're going to have her get suspended anyway, that's a perfect opportunity to do a DQ first.
Sure.
So, yes.
So she did put Shanna and the referee through a table with a powerbomb during the break.
Oh, that's why I missed it.
Well,
don't tell me it was in picture-in-picture.
it wasn't picture-in-picture.
I'm not watching that.
I realize that. But apparently, they did show a replay of this when Hikaru Shida was on the way to the ring for her match.
I see.
Somehow, I didn't see it. And somehow, I ranted for 24 hours about how this aired during a commercial. And, nobody told me until noon today. So apparently nobody else saw it either. Okay?
Yeah.
So don't air stuff during the commercial.
Or entrances.
And I mean, if you do air it during the commercial, you're going to show a replay. Show the replay immediately after commercial. Not, 2 segments later when somebody's doing a ring entrance.
Because that's when we all start skipping forward.
Well, I did skip forward, apparently.
But
you know what's funny? Is I skipped forward and missed that, but I didn't miss it happening in the picture-in-picture.
Sometimes, if I am behind on my note typing, I will, furiously type away and look up and see the PIP thing and whatever's going on. So that's believable. Chris Jericho comes out for a promo, accompanied by Jake Hager, who was dressed like every 1970s professional bowler in the world. Maroon trousers and a maroon polo, and his hair all just parted neatly, like fantastic. So they're in Champaign, Illinois. Jericho says nobody successful ever came from Champaign. Crowd chants for Tony Khan, who went to school there. Jericho announces that AEW is going to make him defend his title one more time this year.
Wrong. I thought the same thing, Vinny. But apparently he is contractually obligated to wrestle again.
Okay.
It's not going to be a title match.
So did I hear him wrong? Or did he?
I think you heard him wrong. Okay. I thought I heard that.
All right.
But Dave was insistent that he actually said that he had to wrestle again.
All right.
Could be the Berenstein Bears here.
Yes, it could be a thing where he said he was going to wrestle, and I just assumed, being Le Champion, they would do a title match.
Yes. Well, I think when you heard contractually obligated, because every other promotion, there's the 30-day rule.
Okay, well, then I wrote he gets to pick his challenger. So did he actually say opponent? I'm going to go back and check this, because I am skeptical.
I'll go back and check right now.
All right. While you were doing that, I'll talk more about his promo here. He has made a list, and the place goes crazy, but he says, no, it's not 2016. This is the lexicon of Le Champion, which is not what lexicon means, but that's okay. And then he reads...
That's the gimmick.
Yes.
I don't know why it's the gimmick, but that's the gimmick.
Because he's Chris Jericho.
What is his character now? They did the gimmick last week where he can't read. Now we've got the gimmick where...
He doesn't know what words are.
He doesn't know what words are. It's a very weird character.
But it's awesome.
Yes.
Well, he can't read this week, and he reads the following list of names who he will not wrestle, which, yes, I wrote down every single one of them in their entirety. He begins. John Moxley. Cody Rhodes, although he can't wrestle me anymore. Anyway, ha ha ha. The Young Bucks. Papa Buck. Uncle Buck. Buck Owens. Moxley. Hangman Page. Diamond Dallas Page. Page. Moxley. Scorpio Sky. Too Cold Scorpio. Any member of the Scorpions. Moxley. Michael Nakazawa. Kenny Omega. Kenny Ortega. Kenny Shields. Kenny Chesney. Kenny from South Park. Moxley. The chubby guy over here with the popcorn in the 5th row. The ugly guy with the dumb glasses over here in the 3rd row. Moxley. Darby Allin, Rick Allen, Alan Jones, Moxley, Evil Uno, Angry Dose, Hateful Trace, Moxley, Marty, and then we never found out who Marty was. What is going to be Jannetty or McFly? The Jurassic Express interrupt.
All right.
Do you have a report?
I just listened to it.
Right.
I can confirm 100% that he is contractually obligated to have one more match. So he never mentioned the title. We all just heard it, but it didn't happen.
Damn it. Well, thank you, Brian.
I mean, maybe we're in another timeline. I've often thought that.
Thank
For
you.
sure, he did not say championship match.
Thank you for confirming the truth.
You're welcome.
So the Jurassic Express interrupt. And before they can say anything, Jericho says dinosaurs and little children are also on the lexicon. So Luchasaurus grabs the mic and says, "Rrrr!" And I was hoping that would be the gimmick and he'd be the zombie all over again. But no, he actually speaks. In fact, he says he has a master's degree in medieval history, drops some famous old people who are way over. I don't have a master's degree, so I don't know who they are. Then he says dinosaurs have been marginalized for 65 million years. And sure, Marco is small for his age, but he's more of a man than you'll ever be. Jericho points out Marco is small for any age, but then says, if it's not you, and it's not you, then it must be you. And he points at Jungle Boy. Says, you haven't won a match in this show. You have never said a word. You're the Hollywood Golden Boy. Everyone's pulling for Jungle Boy. Well, I'm not pulling for Jungle Boy. I think you're a piece of shit. You couldn't last 10 minutes with me. And Jungle Boy takes the mic and says, I know I can last 10 minutes with you, and I'm going to kick your ass. And a brawl breaks out, and eventually, because Luchasaurus is the one guy who physically matches up with Hager, so he sends Hager packing, and Jericho flees from the two small guys, and Jericho's pointing and shouting, I'll see you December 18th. I thought, Jesus, December 18th is the biggest wrestling day of the year now.
Oh, it's a big day.
They're both building up for this.
Yeah, so for the record, Jungle Boy did last 10 minutes with me.
Oh.
So we'll see if he can last 10 minutes with Jericho. The fact that this is not a championship match is very important, Vinny, because there's 1,000 things that you can do now.
Sure.
Do the 10-minute time limit. Jungle Boy lasts the 10 minutes. Jungle Boy then gets a non-title match. Jungle Boy can beat him in the non-title match somehow. Yeah. Then you do the title match, Jericho wins. They have a long time until the next pay-per-view.
Sure.
Obviously, because of the list that you read, it's abundantly clear that Jericho is attempting to avoid Jon Moxley.
Yes.
That's the big match. But that match is not coming up for a while because they don't do monthly pay-per-views.
No.
So you've got to do something to tide Jericho over in the meantime. They want to get Jungle Boy over. Jericho, trust me, will be able to get Jungle Boy over. He'll be able to have a very good match with him. And it's a good series. So,
Great.
Shazam.
Yeah, I'm very happy about all this. Chris Statlander versus Hikaru Shida. Here's where they announced that Nyla Rose had been suspended for powerbombing the ref. Next week, they also announce Butcher and Blade versus Cody and QT Marshall.
Yeah.
Which I think he was on AEW one time. Maybe it was Double or Nothing. I'm pretty sure I saw him somewhere. So, matches back and forth the entire way through. They do way too many near falls. And then Statlander wins with a terrifying cradle tombstone piledriver. And what this means is the number one contender for the women's title has been pinned by an unranked opponent.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Awesome Kong and Brandy Rhodes appear.
Oh, boy.
And Brandy cuts a promo saying, we are the Nightmare Collective. We are an extension of the Nightmare family. We do the jobs nobody else wants to do. And to make a long story short, she says Chris is in her way, but this could also be an opportunity for her. And she's says families want to grow. She can be the first to join the Nightmare Collective. We can take care of you, elevate you. And Statlander's having a stare down with Kong when some random fan from the front row is screaming she wants to pledge. As Jim Ross put it, our crack security team just let her in. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And she gets on the ramp, and they cut off a lot of her hair with a knife, and that was it.
I don't even know where to start. This was no good. And I actually asked today on Observer Live, because Brandy's exact line was, fans have been clamoring to find out what we're doing. I thought, dude, I've never heard anyone ever clamor to find out what you guys are doing. So I asked. I said, is there anybody? Like, when I tweet out the numbers, there's a lot of people that don't like me. They get very angry at what I tweet, right?
Yes.
700, well, this is preposterous, but 791 comments because I posted 2 numbers, okay? So a fair number of those hate me, but there are some in there that like me, okay? So I thought, I've never heard anybody that likes the Brandy Kong angle. Not one person. Like, that's a lot of dislike, okay? There's people that like Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
So I asked, is there anybody out there listening that actually likes the Brandy Kong angle? And for the record, as a fair man, I believe I had 2 people, one of whom had to insist that he was not trolling. There were 2 people that say that they like this angle. But that's it. This thing is not working at all. At all. And you know what's weird about it? Is Brandy is Cody's wife, and they're both executives, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. So you know who else are executives? The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
Sure.
Okay. The Young Bucks, like, I don't know what their win-loss record is, but aside from this week, it seems like every time I see them on TV, they lose.
They lose a lot.
Kenny Omega's gimmick was that he lost all of his matches. Mm-hmm. Cody Rhodes did a stipulation where if he didn't beat Jericho, he's never challenging for the title again. Yeah. All of these executives, like, they won't put themselves over.
Yeah.
Now we have Brandy, who's an executive, and she's, like, putting herself over all of the other women in the division. It's weird.
I think it's fair to say the women's division is the thing AEW is doing worst.
Well, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. When this was over, it was a swing and a miss to me.
Well, speaking of swings and misses, Christopher Daniels versus Pentagon Jr. This is one of those where I'm watching it, and it's so unbelievably bad that I have to go back and watch the whole thing again just to make sure I take it all in. So they went like 10 minutes, and for the first 5, it's just an average TV wrestling match. And one of the things I was watching for is, does somebody get hurt or knocked batty? But there's nothing like that I can see. It appears they were working together fine, and suddenly they just can't get on the same page no matter what they do. Everything is bad and looks sloppy. Everybody's out of position for everything. There are people laughing at this, like pointing and laughing. Ha ha, look at this match. That's before Chris Daniels fucks up the Arabian press and falls right on his head on the ramp.
Yeah.
There's an angel's wings. Then we have more chicanery. Daniels has a mic stand as part of his gimmick. And he gets thrown in the ring. He ends up with it, but that's a DQ, so he decides not to use it. Pentagon hits a low blow and a package pile driver for the win. Just a complete mess of a match.
So I don't know what in the world happened here, but I mean, one thing, Chris Daniels, before he signed with AEW, like he was working all the time. Because that's what he did.
He was a wrestler.
He was a wrestler. So he's working multiple times over the course of a month, and now he's signed with AEW, and his tag team partners are doing most of the tag matches, and he's almost never doing matches. Mm-hmm. So I think, like, it's one thing. How old is Daniels? Is he 50 now? 49?
Late 40s.
Let's see how old he is. It's one thing if you're young and you're not working regularly. I mean, you could still get in there and go. He's born in 1970, so he's 49 years old.
Yep.
Okay. So it's one thing when you're young. Like if you're the Young Bucks, I mean, you could probably work once a week and be fine. And actually, that's what's been happening. In fact,
and they're fine.
I think there was some concern on their part when they had that long period where they weren't doing indies, and then they were going to do that big match on pay-per-view, but they did fine. They got through it. But when you're 49 years old and you're rarely working, I mean, it feels like this can happen. And it's one of the things with AEW having such a very, very limited schedule. You're looking at guys who used to be working all the time, and now they're working one match a week maybe. And I think that's what struck Daniels here, because he just didn't look great in the match, and I watched that botched Arabian Press over and over again because I was just trying to figure out what went wrong. And what went wrong was he couldn't get high enough.
Yeah.
He just couldn't do it. That was what went wrong. He tried, and he just couldn't jump high enough. And I'm like, dude, this guy's been doing this move forever. What? What happened here?
I don't know.
And he fell down, and they did the finish, and it was sad. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I know what the answer is. Everybody needs to work a little bit more often. But I don't think that's going to happen, so I don't know.
Jim Ross, not only beyond bowling shoe ugly, he referenced a black cloud hanging over the match.
And you know, the other problem, too, is there's a style of match the fans want to see Pentagon Jr. do, and it's not a U.S.-style, old-school match. Mm-hmm. That's what this was. So this had everything working against it.
Yes. Let's see. Jim Ross then says, and this is a quote, I believe speaking directly to me, "Folks, you want to know more about Butcher, Blade, and Bunny? Here you go." So the story is, there's two dudes and a gal. They call themselves the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. They are sick of seeing Cody's face everywhere. They are here to cause pain and destruction and cut the head off the snake.
Yeah, what? What's going on?
I don't think I learned anything from this video.
I learned nothing. I learned way more listening to Cody
Yes.
than I did watching this segment here. And, dude, we got the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. We got the Dark Order. We got Kong and Brandy.
Nightmare Collective.
It's like, should we just put all these groups together into one super group of villains? Maybe Marty Scurll can come in and unite all three groups, and we're on our way.
It does seem to be awfully redundant.
It is very redundant. Yes, Ken.
Didn't they reference that Kong and she are in the Nightmare Collective, which is part of the Nightmare family?
They did say that.
I think the Nightmare family is just like Cody and Brandy.
Brandy explained the Nightmare Collective is an extension of the Nightmare family. Maybe just because she's married to Cody.
Yeah, who the hell's the Nightmare family?
I thought it was her or the Rhodes.
That's what I thought. What the hell's going on here?
This is not going well.
You know what I'm saying?
This is not going well at all.
This is unlike, what's weird about AEW is, this is unlike WWE, because WWE, I say, what in the fuck is going on? Because, nobody knows what's going on. And everything just changes by the week, and there's no consistency to anything, and it's pure incompetence, okay? AEW, I don't know what's going on because they don't tell me. There's a difference.
There's a difference.
I mean, I don't like either, but I prefer AEW. But I would prefer if they just told me what was going on.
It's better to not be told than to be told something different every show.
Yes. WWE, I just can't take it anymore. AEW, I just want to know what the fuck's going on. And I have no idea some of these storylines. Mm-hmm. Who in God's name is the Nightmare family? And Cody's talking about how his wife is cutting off the hair of these random women.
He also doesn't know what she's up to.
He doesn't know what's going on.
It's his wife. They're on the same show. Your main event is Joey Janela versus Jon Moxley. They had a wrestling match. A lot of stuff out in the ramp. Jon Moxley did an X-Plex in this match, and Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross were mystified. And Pete Dunne's doing this move on NXT every single week. I do like when they were fighting on the top rope, and Moxley's on the middle rope facing out, and Janela comes over the top of him with an avalanche schoolboy, which is awesome and cool and incredibly simple, and I can't believe I've never seen anyone do that before. There's some kind of dive through the timekeeper's tiny little table, and Moxley kicks out of a top rope elbow, and he catches Janela with a paradigm shift onto the turnbuckle on the top rope, and then the regular paradigm shift in the ring for the pin, and Moxley is still undefeated. And as he is celebrating, the inner circle comes out through the crowd, and they stay in the crowd, and there's a stare down, and that was weak.
Well, I mean, it was just a play off of last week. So yeah, the match was... Early on, I was like, this match is not very good. Like about the first, maybe a third. But then, I thought it got really good. I thought it was very good by the end. I don't know what happened.
Some matches get hotter sometimes.
Yeah.
I thought it was a perfectly fine TV main event.
Yeah, they did. I loved the spot, and I'm glad that I saw people on the board agreeing with me, where they actually missed a Joey Janela dive. But the shot that they actually had was just Moxley's face looking up as Doom, like the asteroid was coming at him. And then you just see everything explode when it hits him. Yeah. They should have shown a replay, but it was a very unique shot. I think they did it on accident, but it was cool. And then they didn't actually show me what really happened, so that was disappointing. But I did like that actual shot. And this Moxley DDT, looks like he's killing everybody. I hope he's not. I know Darby Allin wasn't on the show this week and claimed that his neck was dead, I believe he said.
That sounds bad.
Which I presume was a work, because he did take this move off the middle rope and like he should be selling it like he's dead. But I hope he's not dead. I mean, we did see... I mean, Moxley's his DDT is very similar to Finn Balor's 1916.
Actually, yes.
Which killed Johnny Gargano.
Sure did.
I might add. So, yeah. I thought the show was hit and miss. I think that's the best way to put it. It was a hit and miss show.
I liked the show.
I don't think it was the worst show they've done, but it was certainly not the best.
Yeah. So it was time to vote, and I thought in a complete reversal of what the usual pattern that we've seen over the past 2 months or so, I thought while AEW had the best match, NXT was clearly the better show.
I thought we thought that last week too, didn't we?
Maybe I thought last week too. Well, last week we both had NXT winning, but for months and months and months, it seemed like the best specific match was on NXT, but AEW is the better show overall.
I see.
So it's a long-term trend, Brian.
Yes, I vote for NXT this week.
Yep.
I thought that it was just a better show. I mean, there was, like I said, there was stuff that I liked on AEW. There was stuff that I really didn't like on AEW. And I don't think there was anything on NXT that I really didn't like.
Yeah.
So, overall, just a stronger show for NXT, a weaker show for AEW. But I didn't think that either show was, like, terrible or anything like that.
Certainly not.
So, NXT wins again this week. Mm-hmm. And there you go, everybody. It'll be interesting to see the numbers next week, because I felt that the NXT show lost in the numbers.
We also watched AEW Dynamite, also December 11th of the year 2019. Jon Moxley versus a geek with a tag team partner. I skipped the entrances, they didn't mention his name. The partner is John Silver. So Moxley wrestled John Silver's partner and pinned him in seconds. And then John Silver got in the ring. He was also destroyed in seconds. The Inner Circle then comes out to confront Moxley. The crowd is chanting something very obscene. TNT tried their best to censor the crowd, which made, for a while, the whole segment unwatchable.
What'd they say? You don't have to say it, but, like, give me a hint.
It was, F him up, Moxley.
Oh.
Something along those lines.
It is funny, because when we were kids, you couldn't say any kind of stuff like this on television. And, like, sometimes even on those Raw shows back in the day, they would try and bleep the crowd if the crowd was saying something really...
Nitro was worse, but yes.
Really profane. Yeah. But, like, now the rules have been loosened. So you can, in fact, say the word shit on cable.
Which I believe Jericho does every week.
You can say everything but fuck, I believe. There might be a couple of others, but you can say shit. But the funny thing was, Jericho says shit in this promo, which is fine. And then, in the next video package, Excalibur says shit, and they bleeped him. That's weird.
I don't know. Maybe.
But yes, Jericho...
Le Champion gets a longer leash.
Jericho loves saying the word shit as much as Eddie Guerrero loves saying the word ass.
It was Owen.
Owen did too.
Owen Hart loved saying the word ass.
Yeah. Eddie did too.
So did Vince.
Vince did as well. Vince loved saying anything.
Well, that actually is the best.
He loved saying sock 19 years ago this week.
He actually did. He did.
I've never heard a human being in my lifetime manage to say the word suck like Vince said it.
He said it like it was spelled SUCKHHHHHHH.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yes, it was. So the Inner Circle comes out. They surround the ring, and Jericho very cautiously, very carefully gets in the ring to address Jon Moxley. Says, a decade ago, when you were first breaking out the national scene, you asked me for advice. how to get over, how to be a star. And you did get over. You did become a star. Then they became adversaries, and we beat the living shit out of each other. And I pressed pause and thought, Chris Jericho and Dean Ambrose was a thing? And I looked it up, and they had a whole long feud, and Ambrose put him in thumbtacks. I had forgotten about all this. So, says you showed up at Double or Nothing, and you laid me out, but I'm okay with that, because it showed you still got a chip in your shoulder. You're still an asshole. You're still a winner. But again, Jon Moxley, you need me. Just imagine what you could do as part of the inner circle. I know it's a tough question. I don't expect an answer tonight. Go home, talk it over with your lovely wife. Go talk it over with your mother, who I've met. She's a great lady. Take the holidays, think hard, choose wisely, and when you're ready, we'll be waiting. And he leaves an Inner Circle t-shirt on his shoulder, and the Inner Circle leaves, and Jon Moxley seems conflicted.
So, I mentioned last night that, and granted, when we agreed to go on the Jericho cruise, there was no AEW. But now it's like a little bit weird because we are going on the Jericho cruise, and every week I come on the show and I talk about how Chris Jericho is the greatest.
Yes.
And it sucks because... Actually, it doesn't suck because he's so great that I think everybody just knows he actually is great. And I'm not saying this because of the boat. He is so great.
Yeah.
And one of the things about Jericho that we don't mention here is that everything that he does just makes me so happy as a fan.
Yeah.
Because it's so simple and it's so effective. I could be wrong about this, but last week when he was going over the list of people that he was not going to wrestle,
The Lexicon of Le
Champion, he said that Moxley's name like 8 times.
Correct.
Okay, so a lot of people were like, well, Jericho clearly wants to face Moxley. I saw it as, that's the guy he really doesn't want to face. Because when he's listing all the guys he's not going to wrestle, he says Moxley's name 6 times.
Yes.
Okay?
He's most concerned about avoiding Jon Moxley.
Yes, that's the whole key. The Chris Jericho character, to me, I could be wrong, what I see when I watch this, he doesn't want to face Jon Moxley. So what happens this week? Well, of course, he comes out and he asks Moxley to join his crew.
Of course.
Like, I knew where it was leading, but later on in the show, they announced the main event for next week. And on the screen, it just says, Chris Jericho versus Jungle Boy, 10-minute time limit.
Yeah.
Non-title.
Yes.
It just made me so happy. Because whenever there's an announcement of something in WWE, I read it and I'm always skeptical. Because it's just, they're always going to mess something up. It's always going to be a disaster. Like, sometimes things are okay, but here's the best way to put it. I'm disappointed 9 times out of 10, okay? Mm-hmm. There's no way that I will be disappointed with what they do with Chris Jericho and the Jungle Boy next week. I don't think there's any way. They could go the 10-minute time limit and Jericho can't beat him. They can go 9 minutes and 55 seconds and Jungle Boy beats him in a non-title match. This leads to a title match down the road. You go from there. There's so many things that they can do with this simple storyline. And the key is, I don't know which one they're going to do, but I'm very confident that it will be satisfying to me as a wrestling fan.
Sure. Yeah, no, this is.
I just loved him out there.
This is good storytelling.
I would talk it over with your wife, your mother, a great lady. Yeah. I met her. It's so obvious what's going on. It's no bullshit. There's no swerves. There's no stupid overthinking.
No.
It's just so simple and obvious and great.
That's the last key. It's simple and obvious, but you're still having fun watching it.
Yes, keep it fucking simple. That's what I said at the beginning of this show. There's like one guy who's keeping it simple, and it's Chris Jericho.
So after the opener and this promo, the announcers run down the card. Luchasaurus versus Sammy Guevara. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus, is it Kip Sabian?
Yes.
I don't know if it's Sabian. And Shawn Spears. In her debut, Big Swole versus Emi Sakura. And the Street Fight main event tag team match between the Young Bucks and Proud and Powerful. The winner of that match gets a title match against SCU next week, December 18th, the biggest day of the year in wrestling. And also on this show, in fact, next, Cody and QT Marshall versus The Butcher and the Blade.
Yeah.
So that is the match. Butcher and Blade comes out, and their graphic reads, making AEW debut as MJF's henchman.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Well, they didn't air the original MJF promo on television, but he did do an inset promo here, and they did put on the graphic on the screen. He has brought these men in.
Yes. He has a little inset promo. Thank you, Cody, for being such an idiot that you would allow the Butcher and the Blade to pick your partner, and they work for me, so I'm picking your partner. I have picked QT Marshall. Best of luck, champ. Oh, wait, I can't call you champ. You can't be that. So, the match was good. They didn't reinvent the wheel or anything. They had a good formulaic TV tag match.
It was a totally fine, fun tag team match. The crowd loved it. Mm-hmm. QT Marshall, they absolutely loved the guy. Even when he does the ugliest space flying tiger drop
what is it, hideous?
All time.
It
was beyond
hideous. An actual tiger would have done better.
It was beyond hideous. But you know what? He tried, and so they reacted like he hit it.
Sure. My favorite part of this match actually was when they're building to crescendo. They got the heat on Marshall. They're teasing the hot tag several times, and they tease a hot tag. They do a big double team, and Marshall just barely kicks out, and Butcher grabs a wrist lock. And Jim Ross, who is my voice in the show, says, "You got him on the ropes. Finish him off. Be aggressive. Don't put him in a wrist lock." So QT Marshall, by the way, I believe also botched Crossroads in this match.
He did.
Apparently, this is the hardest move in the world to do.
That's what I concluded. I never did a Crossroads once in my entire career, and I never will try.
I did think, because there's eventually a hot tag to Cody and a long back and forth, and this went a little too long, and they went a little bit too out of their way to protect QT Marshall. You don't need to give him 200 near falls before you beat him. Finally, they hit the big double team, the suplex onto the knees. A little bit long, but a very good tag match.
I have to think really hard, but I believe that I have seen the Crossroads messed up more times in the last 2 weeks than I've ever seen a Shooting Star Press messed up. There was Brock.
Yeah.
Kidman. I never saw the one Jericho messed up, so I'm at 2.
No cameras there, yeah.
Is there another one that really got badly botched that I'm forgetting?
There's got to be one in Mexico at some point.
Anyway, why can no one do this move?
I don't know. I've seen it done for decades now. It's never occurred to me. I also never tried one, but it never looked to me like a particularly difficult move, but I clearly was wrong. So Cody is sulking on the floor when Darby Allin storms out, pushes by the Butcher and the Blade, helps Cody to his feet. Apparently Cody has one friend in this world now.
Well, they didn't say this on television, but Darby put it on his social media.
Oh, great.
So hopefully they'll talk about it next week. And they got plenty of time to talk about it, so I'm not that mad about it. But Darby's explanation is, we went to a 20-minute draw. I want a chance to beat you, so I'm going to team with you. And if I help you beat the Butcher and the Blade, I want my rematch so that I can then get my revenge.
Okay.
That's apparently the story.
I hope they do that on TV.
Yes.
Because that's a perfectly fine little story that extends this all for one more week. MJF comes out for a promo. I love MJF. I know I'm not alone. He harasses Cord Boy.
God, he doesn't have a boat.
That would be
I'll be putting this guy over every week.
Different cruise.
Holy smokes, 23 years old.
I think the MJF cruise would be he'd get a big giant boat, but he and Wardlow would be the only people on it.
Yeah.
Which actually sounds awesome. So, yes, 23-year-old MJF comes out like the world is his. He harasses one of the grips, who he calls Cord Boy, because Cody said MJF had done the worst Crossroads of all time 2 weeks ago, and you laughed at this, Cord Boy, but all will be forgiven if you kiss the ring. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Kiss the Ring Cody's gimmick in ROH?
Yeah.
So that's even better. He's just ripping off Cody left and right. So this guy does kiss the ring, but of course he's MJF, so you can't trust this fucker. And he grabs him. Now I think they call his move the double cross. And I'm not certain. I think he actually spins the other way with the guy.
Whatever he's doing, he barely made it around this one either.
It was better than last week.
It was better than last week.
Yes. So the crowd again is being censored, which means MJF is being censored. But MJF eventually, he puts Cody over. You're a great promo, but I am better. And all that show you did about trying to get a match with me, I don't need any of your crap, and I don't need your money. I need you to suffer. You decided to call me a knock-off Chris Jericho. And you said the scarf I wear is a fake. Well, I'm not fake. Cody is fake. You're out here with your fake blonde hair that looks like a cat pissed in it. You're out here with your Gary Busey beaver teeth. And the way you suck up to your fans, it's all fake. And, of course, you have that lisp. And he makes fun of Cody's lisp for a while. Says, you might suck up to your friend Tony Khan, try to get me fired, but you don't want me fired. You want to get your hands on me. Well, guess what, Cody? It's on. But I have some stipulations. And I'm not going to share those stipulations here in Honkyville, USA, Texas.
Honkyville.
I don't heard the word honky.
It's been a while.
Like the original Vacation movie, I think. He'll give Cody the stips in Jacksonville. So I thought, man, they're really building up for the next week's show. No, the Jacksonville show is January 1st.
Yeah.
We have 3 weeks to think of these stips now. He knows Cody's foaming at the mouth, but I'm in control because I'm better than you, and you know it. MJF is the best.
So, I think I can talk about this because I think he mentioned it on a show, but several years ago I had Alex Shelley on one of the shows, and I think he talked about it on the air. I don't think he'd care anyway, but when he grew up, he read Figure 4 Weekly. And when I heard that, I was like, what?
Yeah, you're old.
What the fuck?
You're very old.
Alex Shelley grew up reading Figure 4 Weekly. Like,
yes.
What the fuck? Maxwell Jacob Friedman, he wasn't even born when I started Figure 4 Weekly.
Yeah.
He was born in 1996.
Yes. Yeah.
I started this.
We are decrepit
and
wizards.
he was born a year later.
Yeah.
So, the most amazing thing about MJF is how good he is at promos.
Yes.
When he was 10, WCW had already died, ECW had died, WWE was in the doldrums. He was 10 in the year 2006. We had been doing this podcast for a year when he was 10. Okay, so I think what this is, but I don't know because, like, all these young people should be good if my theory is correct. Back in the day, like, if you were 23 years old, I mean, you basically had to learn from the other people in your promotion, or I guess maybe you could try and get a hold of some tapes, or you could watch whatever was on TV. This MJF grew up in a world where every last single thing you could ever want to watch, every great promo
is on your phone.
Is on your phone.
Yeah.
This guy, he could be in detention. He could be on a trip with his family, going to and from school on the bus, just sitting there watching every single promo from the 80s. There probably is no famous promo that MJF has not watched 1,000 times. And now here he is. Because of that, he's 23 years old, and he's out there holding his own with 49-year-old Chris Jericho, who has been everywhere and has done everything.
Yes.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
It is mind-boggling how great he is at that. He's great at that. In a way, it's the hardest thing to be great at.
Oh, yeah.
To take the microphone and stand alone in the ring and just own a 10,000
Not even that. Like, how long do you think he's been working in front of crowds this big? I can tell you, since October.
Yeah.
Okay? And
he fits right in.
On top of that, I'll tell you the truth. When I first saw MJF for the very first time I ever saw him, I thought, that is an EC3 ripoff.
Yes, I thought the same thing.
Maxwell Jacob Friedman. What? And now, like, I'm a fool. Okay? First off, his real name is Maxwell Friedman. So, I mean,
sure,
that's his name.
Yeah.
It's not Jacob, but he is not just a guy doing the 3-letter nickname rich kid gimmick. Okay? Mm-hmm. When he mentioned Cody's lisp, these fans were furious. Like, I thought that there was going to be a stabbing. They were so mad at this fucking guy for having the nerve to be that mean to their friend Cody.
They do love Cody.
Nobody talks about Cody's lisp, you fucker. They were so angry. This was real, legit, honest to God heat this guy was drawing with this promo. Not this stupid Baron Corbin bullshit where you just want to turn off the television. Like, these people were mad at this guy. These people want Cody to beat this guy's ass.
The first time I saw MJF, it was on YouTube, which is another way you can get great at promos, by the way. Record your own promos, put them on YouTube. You will get better. Then erase the bad ones when you're done. But anyway, and he was in somebody's backyard talking about one of his smaller estates, and the pool's not very big. But anyway, and I thought to myself, that was a really good version of like an EC3 promo. Or later down the road, I remember someone said, he just strikes me as a Miz ripoff. Now, beyond even the opinion of who you prefer to watch more, Miz or MJF. I didn't want to discuss that part. The point is, neither of them is original. There have been spoiled, rich characters who thought they were better than everyone else since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
So, whether it's a ripoff or not is not the point. The point is how awesome he is at doing it. And he's unbelievable at it. So anyway, we have a wacky skit. There's some lonely guy in a hotel watching the pay-per-view channels, and I was really creeped out by this.
It's Alex Reynolds that got beat in the opener.
Oh, was it now?
In the fastest finish of all time in AEW history.
See if I'd...
Dark Order tells him to stop being a jobber.
Aren't you tired of being a jobber yet, Alex? They say you can join our loyalty program if you're tired of losing all the time.
Yeah.
So he's watching on the hotel and the TV in his hotel room, and it kind of goes back and forth between being generic hotel entrances and specific messages directed specifically at him. He's also going on his phone, going through dark spoilers. I believe they said he's looking at the dark spoilers, and I saw this tag team, and I thought it was a joke. But then the guy on the screen mentions we have been watching the Beaver Boys.
Yeah,
is that actually their name?
Apparently.
Wow, we've been watching the Beaver Boys lose with great interest. Stop losing and start winning. Just join us. Join the Dark Order. And then Beaver Boy Dose walks in and asks Alex who he's talking to.
I like it.
The Dark Order stuff is fun. You know what's fun?
I hope next week on the television, the Dark Order tells him, Vinny didn't even know you were the same guy that did a job in the opener.
That would be...
You need to quit losing and start winning.
Yes. Your loss was so pathetic, it made zero impression on
By the way, Ken, what the fuck's going on with this thing?
I have acquired it.
You have?
Yes.
All right. Well, what I want you to do is send me. You can tweet it if you want.
Okay.
I'll retweet it and I will send it to whatever the. What was that email?
Anyway, JoinDarkOrder.com.
I think you do hashtag or.
Oh, was
it? Yeah, they said to tweet it with the hashtag.
They did. Yes.
Dark Order.
Okay.
Yes.
Make sure you tweet it. But I feel like I sent an email. Anyway.
No, they would want you to tweet it.
I mean, I got an email response, so I must have got it. I must have done something, right?
Yes.
Read it again.
Did I fill out a form?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I went to the website.
Yeah. But they sent you an email.
Yeah, joindarkorder.com. There we go. All right. So send it to me and I'll get it to them.
Okay.
Anyway, these Dark Order skits are great because each one leads into what happens the next week. There's an episodic feel to them. It's not just the same stuff every week.
Sure as hell isn't.
Big Swole versus Emi Sakura. So Big Swole really isn't that big. I was expecting female Big E to come out.
Well, the problem, Vinny, is we watched all that WCW where they had that wrestler named Swole.
Yeah, this is not Swole.
Absolutely gigantic. And yeah, when I first heard Big Swole, I was expecting Swole.
She's a muscular, athletic woman.
I mean, she is way more swole than like 95% of women. Maybe 99%.
Yes.
But she ain't that big.
We've also been watching China and Asia and Malaysia on the show.
That's true.
And they're all bigger than her. Now, that said, she is very muscular and very athletic and charismatic as all hell.
There we go. Join us. Dark Order. JoinDarkOrder.com/contact. That's how I got a hold of them. All right.
Emi, by the way, also hit a crossroads in this match. So I guess that's like a punch in AEW. When you don't know what else to do a crossroads. So they're doing this match. Basically, it was a fine match, but went a little too long. My biggest problem is Emi's doing the Freddie Mercury gimmick. And some weeks, I think she's supposed to be heel all the time. Some weeks the crowd likes her because she's funny. Some weeks they boo her.
Dude, she's Angel Garza. She's supposed to be a heel, but the people absolutely love her, and she should just be a babyface.
Yeah. So they decided to do some comedy with a mic stand. But this is something, if you're going to do this, you got to do it right at the beginning, so you get the comedy out of the way, then you do the wrestling. Or you got to do it right at the very end, so it leads into the finish. When they do a match, and then in the middle of the match, like they're doing holds, and Emmy has the mic and is pretending to sing into it. And then Swole breaks free and starts to do a song and dance instead of a comeback. They both look dumb.
Well, there's also the issue that Chris Jericho has a mic stand. Or Chris Daniels.
He does have a mic stand.
Yeah, so why do we have 2 mic stands in AEW?
Well, the answer is because Emmy's doing a Queen gimmick, and Freddie Mercury had a mic stand. Daniels actually get chance, at least for last week, led the crowd in chants of SCU along with the music. Maybe he doesn't need a stand. Just give him a mic. So anyway, another match that went too long. Not every match needs a dozen near falls. Swole won with a ripcord rolling elbow. It was pretty cool. And Hikaru Shida in the crowd was very surprised by this, which was an upset. Big Swole winning her debut. But I like Big Swole. I'd like to see more of Big Swole.
Was too long, though.
Yeah. Jen Decker interviews Pac.
So, Jen didn't ask that dumb a question. It was actually a decent question.
A perfectly fine question.
But she goes, Pac, you are clearly trying to get the attention of Kenny Omega. What message are you trying to send him? He stops and he looks at her and he just stares at her for 5 full seconds with utter disdain for the question she has asked.
Yes.
It's like, this had to be a message to WWE. But she didn't ask a stupid question was the problem. So anyway, he wants a rubber match. Or he's going to run wild.
This is what he says. He has come here for opportunity. He has only received injustice. One dominating performance after another, but he's not gotten what he wanted. He wants his rubber match with Kenny Omega. If he does not get it, he will not be responsible for his actions. Kip Sabian and Shawn Spears versus Hangman Page and Kenny Omega.
I have been asking for weeks.
Hang on a second. Let's count. This is the 11th episode of AEW Dynamite. We finally got to hear Tully Blanchard speak.
Yes, Tully's done a couple of promos, but they have not been on television, and
then they don't count.
He finally gets a chance to cut a promo, and it's not very good.
It wasn't.
I was like, what?
Maybe.
You had one short promo, Tully. I know you can talk. I saw you at Cauliflower Alley.
Okay, because I was going to say maybe he's just maybe he does not still have it. It was not a very good promo, but he's looking for a new tag team partner for Shawn Spears.
Well, I mean, maybe part of the problem was that was what they had to talk about. He's talking about the Horsemen and how great, Arn and Tully and Ole and Flair, and then he's got to talk about how maybe Kip Sabian and Shawn Spears might be the best tag team in the world.
He actually said this.
I'm like, that's going out on a limb, buddy. Nothing against those guys, but I'm pretty confident that Shawn Spears and Chris Sabian, or Kip Sabian, are not going to be the best tag team in the world.
That would be an upset.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're doing this match. Penelope Ford is interfering left and right. It may have done the best high spots in the heel team, so why not?
Yeah, she did.
And somebody was crawling for a tag when the lights go out.
Well, Omega hit a V trigger and the lights went out.
Okay. When they come back up, Joey Janela has Tully Blanchard pretending to be bound and gagged on stage. He's pretending badly to be tied up that he can't move. Shawn Spears, showing emotion for the first time maybe in all of 2019, runs up the ramp to make the save. He's brawling with Janela. The crowd is just perplexed by all of this. And so Sabian's left alone in the ring. Omega hits a V-trigger, and then Hangman tags himself in, hits the buckshot, and gets the pin. And Omega is surprised, but they won. So he shrugs, and they move on.
Yeah, the crowd had no idea what was going on because Janela is supposed to be a babyface. Spears is a heel. Tully is a heel. But, Spears and Tully did do the spike pile driver on Joey Janela off the steps. And the problem was, everybody cheered because it was a spike pile driver off the steps and Tully, jumped, landed on his feet. But, man, when you take an old legend like Tully and you kidnap him, he's bound and gagged on the stage, and his charge rushes out of the ring to go to his aid.
Yeah.
I mean, the psychology is backwards.
This was a noble act by Shawn Spears.
Yes, it was a noble act, and it was a dastardly act by Joey Janela. I realize that, Tully helped beat him up, but it's Tully Blanchard, dude. Just kidnap this guy and ties hands and mouth.
The audacity of kidnapping.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Brandy stuff, my notes read.
Yeah, she buries all the women. Really buried Britt Baker.
Yes.
Called her a groupie, basically.
A pathetic, literally.
Yeah.
That was her quote. A pathetic groupie is what she said.
Yes.
She's still trying to recruit Chris Statlander. We are waiting for the alien to come home, she says.
Yes.
And she's in there. I don't think I saw Kong in this group, but the gal who came out of the crowd last week and got a haircut, she was there.
Yeah.
And there's some bald fella.
I don't know who that guy was.
Did not show his face, and Brandy says it's not time yet.
Maybe that was Evil Uno.
I guess.
They are all coming together.
I thought about
Who knows?
Jericho takes over the announce desk with Ross.
Outraged that Excalibur told him he didn't know what lexicon meant.
Yes, he was.
He's got the exact definition to prove that he was right.
And the etymology, the Greek roots of it all.
Yes.
Luchasaurus is not the only one with a college degree, he says.
And he notes, I've been having trouble with Shivani for 25 years.
Skiavon.
Well, yes.
Yes. Luchasaurus versus Sammy Guevara. My favorite moment of this is when Jericho, they're talking about how legit Luchasaurus is, his height and how dangerous he is and all this, but Jericho adds, he is not a legit dinosaur, and you can't convince me otherwise.
He was so great. Talking about Jungle Boy.
Amazing.
He actually flat out says, Jungle Boy, Jungle Jack Perry, the son of Luke Perry. Well, finally somebody tells us.
The late, great Luke Perry.
Yes.
So.
How terrible it is this Jurassic Express gangs up on people.
Yes.
Disgusting.
Yes.
Just the stuff that makes me smile.
Yes, he's a fun, hypocritical heel.
Yes.
Yes. All I wrote about this was I did not have a very good week for wordiness. They do a match and Lucha wins with a spinning face
there's nothing
plant.
to happen about it. There's nothing to talk about in the match. It was all afterwards.
That makes me feel better. So Lucha wins with a spinning face plant. Jericho and Hager attack, and Hager and Luchasaurus are brawling outside as Jungle Boy and Jericho are brawling in the ring. And Jungle Boy hits a big Rana, and Marco hits the ring and counts 3.
Yeah.
And Jim Ross is sure to point out it's unofficial, in
Yes.
case you may have been confused.
Jericho made sure to announce it didn't count.
Yes, but he's still outraged.
He's outraged. He's been embarrassed.
He's humiliated by what this young punk has done, thinking he'd out-wrestle him. We had a commercial for the next pay-per-view.
Now, the only thing, I loved this, but the one thing that I did think about was the whole idea of next week is Jericho says, you can't beat me in 10 minutes.
You can't last 10 minutes with
You
me.
can't last 10 minutes with me. Well, the week before, he pinned him in 30 seconds. Less! It's immediate.
It's not a fair fight, Brian.
I realized
He's
that.
caught off guard.
I realized that. But yes, it was Jericho's reaction was great. Jungle Boy was great. Fans went absolutely insane for him pinning Chris Jericho. It was all great.
I would rather have him hit a cradle and have his short friend count 3 than have him hit a dozen moves and leave Jericho laying.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have that big a problem with
Just
it.
embarrassed
I find it was ironic.
So they announced the next pay-per-view.
He beat him in 5 seconds to set up I can't beat you in 10 minutes match. That's essentially what this is.
That is kind of how it went. So 2 things about the next pay-per-view. First of all, it's on Leap Day. And I hope this becomes a regular event where we get this pay-per-view every 4 years. Second of all, it is called AEW Revolution, which I think has been the name for about 84 different pay-per-views by now. Not very original. Still a better name than Full Gear. 2 matches announced for next week.
Should mention, by the way, that when they announced that show was on February 29th, I suddenly realized my daughter is 4 years old because she was 6 hours away from being born on Leap Year Day,
Yes.
February 29th.
Your daughter is 4 years old.
Holy smokes.
Which makes you 4 years older than you were when she was
Jiminy
born.
Christmas.
We're all getting...
MJF was 19 when she was born. What?
We're all getting closer to death. Next week, 2 matches announced. Chris Jericho versus Jungle Boy, non-title with a 10-minute time limit. Which is the most wonderful
I
old
just
school
loved it.
thing. Yes.
Yeah, that's what's so great.
Yes.
It's like watching a territory show.
It is.
On national television. Where everything else is totally modern. That's one of the reasons it works.
It stands out.
Because the stuff he's doing is so old school in this crazy new school promotion.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
He is an 80s territorial heel.
Yes.
Working with a bunch of luchadors and indie guys.
Yes, it's the greatest.
Yes. Also next week, Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander. The main event, street fight tag match, the Young Bucks versus Proud and Powerful. SCU is in the crowd. Both teams took times to recognize them. Although before that, They jumped the Young Bucks on the stage along with Sammy Guevara. Brandon Cutler ran out to make the save and got powerbombed through the stage. What a geek he is. And then the Bucks hit the Indie Taker on the stage on Guevara to take him out and make him back to a 2-on-2 match.
My one complaint about this match is that none of the announcers had any idea if it had started. And in fact, Excalibur said it hadn't started. And the next thing you know, the ref's counting. So I don't know if somebody forgot to ring a bell or what happened here, but that was weird.
No one seemed to know what was going on. The only two things of note were, once the actual match in the ring began, or even at ringside area, because SCU was shown in the front row. They will face the winner of this next week. And both teams took the time to, in the middle of they'd already been hitting each other with weapons and everything. They still took time to go over and do a little jaw-jacking for next week. And then they're in Dallas. So at one point, Matt put on the Dallas Cowboys football helmet. And the crowd goes crazy. And of course, Proud and Powerful are stupid heels, so they punch him in the helmet and sell their hands. So Hager runs out. The ref gets bumped. Make a long story short. Dustin Rhodes attacks Hager. The Bucks hit more bang for your buck, but there's no ref. So then Aubrey runs out, and the crowd loves Aubrey. And the Proud and Powerful hit the street sweeper onto a trash can, and Aubrey counts 1, and Aubrey counts 2, and Nick pulls Aubrey out of the ring, and the whole crowd boos.
They were furious that he laid his hands, even though it was saving the match for the babyfaces. You do not touch Aubrey Edwards.
Yes, this is where you know not everything in AEW. Some things in AEW have gone flat out wrong, and one of them is Aubrey Edwards at this point is a bigger star than the Young Bucks.
I don't know if I'd say a bigger star, but don't lay your hands on her, no matter who you are. That's the lesson.
So
Cody could pull her out of the ring, and these fans would be outraged.
There's 700 tables out there. I don't even know who set them all up. They may have been out there from the get-go, but every once in a while, a guy would take a punch and fall off the apron through a table. Just completely
There's
random.
a lot of tables out there.
And eventually, the Bucks hit a Meltzer driver onto the chairs and won. I know we've been watching a lot of hardcore matches on old school Raw and Nitro, so that's why I was burned out on this, and this was much better than all of those. But this felt like nothing I had not seen 500 times in my life.
Well, hey, it was a hardcore street fight main event. Nick Jackson had the flu. That
doesn't help.
He was dying. He said it was the hardest match he'd ever done in his life.
That's bad.
I guess they just figured they were telling him not to do the match, but I guess his mindset was, dude, we don't have time to change this. I got to do this match. And he went out there and he did this match with the flu. You never would have known. He gutted his way through it, and I thought it was a very good match. Not the best match of the night, but a very good match. And yes, next week it is the Young Bucks versus SCU for the titles. Both teams had a stare down afterwards as the show ended. And that was AEW. I did love, by the way, the one other thing I loved was Ortiz has his sock full of balls. Mm-hmm. And Jim Ross, I don't know why I found this so funny. He starts giving us a history lesson about how in the early 1900s, prison guards used weapons like this to subdue inmates because it didn't leave a lot of bruising.
That was odd.
And I was like, are you talking about the sock full of balls? If you fucking hit me with a sock full of balls, I'm bruising everywhere. Maybe he was talking about the trash can lid. I don't know.
It was a strange comment about the history of prison brutality.
Yeah, but
Which is a strange subject to even know anything about.
I know, but I felt like he knew what he was talking about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know what he was talking about, but I felt like he knew what he was talking about.
That's the way to put it. Because
Yes.
I'm with you. If you hit me with a sock full of balls, I will bruise.
Yeah,
and cry.
I'll bruise all over the place.
Yeah.
Jiminy, especially if those are baseballs.
That's what's implied.
I mean, if they're tennis balls, that ain't going to subdue me.
I suspect we're not supposed to think they are wiffle balls
Okay.
or ping pong balls.
All right.
Croquet balls, perhaps.
Well, Vinny, what's your vote for this week?
Oh, this is a tough one. When I finished AEW, I was certain NXT was better. Then we went back and recapped it, and I am not sure. I think I am still going to vote NXT. It had that great Leo Rush Angel Garza match, which years from now I will remember, and I will not remember anything else in either of these shows. It's very close, Brian, but I'm going to vote NXT.
Well, ironically, when I was done watching AEW and NXT, I was confident that AEW comfortably won, But after reviewing both shows, I'm much less certain. It was much, much closer upon reviewing them.
Which show did you watch first?
I watched AEW first.
So maybe this is whatever show we watch first we like better.
I don't know, because I'm still voting for AEW.
Okay.
So I'm voting for AEW. NXT had a very good opener. NXT had a very good main event, but that was a long stretch of nothing happening in the middle of that show.
Yes.
And the AEW show, I mean,
had the Jericho promo, the MJF promo.
Moxley is super over. They got a star there. The Butcher and the Blade debut was pretty good.
Yeah.
The MJF promo was awesome.
It was the deeper show for sure.
Yeah, the Kenny Omega tag match was fun. The pinning of Chris Jericho was good, and it was a good main event. So I go AEW, but it's just like the demos this week.
It is, actually.
Very, very close. Almost a tie.
I understand now why.
Yes, almost a tie.
This is why there was a tie.
All right, everybody, that's it. We're going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back on Sunday. There's a million shows this week.
Then we also watched AEW Dynamite, also December 18th of the year 2019. Lucha Brothers versus Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. This is like the best match of the year that wasn't the best match on TV at that moment. They had a very, very good tag match. And for the first half of it, it just felt like a house show match. The crowd was hot for everything, so they didn't do too much. They just let them stand back and do dueling chants and Zero Miedo and whatever. And then about halfway through, Rey Fenix said, okay, it's time to show everyone all the cool shit I can do. And he did a lot of cool shit. Then Hangman Page said, oh yeah? Well, I can also do some cool shit. And he did a bunch of cool shit. And Phoenix was like, well, my shit's cooler than your shit, motherfucker. And he did all his cooler shit. It was really awesome. There was one point right before the finish where Omega had a Snapdragon suplex on Phoenix. And Phoenix, rolled to his feet and went for a cutter. And Omega either wasn't there or he was there and didn't even react to it at all. So they were on
He wasn't there.
There were very, very different pages there. That was unfortunate. And the crowd kind of groaned. But then they built to the finish. Now, last week, Page and Omega won a match where Page tagged himself in and hit the buckshot and won. And there's a bit of a strange reaction from Omega where he kind of shrugged, but hey, they won, so he didn't care. Apparently, there was also a point in that match where Omega offered a high five and Page turned him down. None of us noticed it at the time. So it was.
Hey, we didn't notice it, but they told us all about it.
They did.
That's their job.
Regardless, Brian, that's still two things. From listening to the announcers, you would have thought they were trading blows throughout that contest. They were talking about how they were totally different pages and this is their week to get back together. So at least they tried on commentary. I think they overdid it. But at least at the finish, which is Omega is holding, I believe, Phoenix. When Page goes to the buckshot, Phoenix dodges, and Page hits Omega with the buckshot lariat. And the Lucha Brothers take over. They finish him off with the foot stomp, package pile driver finish. A tremendous tag team match.
It was a very good match. I don't have a problem at all with the finish, but I was thinking, if Kenny Omega actually won a lot of matches, which he doesn't, this would have meant even more.
Yes.
But the problem is,
we'll get to that.
Kenny Omega loses and loses and loses and loses. Then he gets a win or two, and then he loses because Hangman screwed up. And so, I guess he's supposed to be angry or it's supposed to lead to something, but he always loses. So the point of all of this is, as we're all aware, the top stars need to stop losing so much.
Boy,
even though, in the case of the Young Bucks, it is a storyline. So I will give it a little more time, but this is crazy.
We'll get to it. So, Page and Omega start to bicker after the match. They start exchanging shoves, and suddenly, mid-shove, Pac is on my screen. Mm-hmm. Bastard Pac. Apparently he was also on the big screen in the arena, but they didn't cut to a shot of the big screen. I just saw Pac on my screen. I thought it was a mistake. So he says he has been challenging Omega. He wants an answer from Omega. He has not gotten it, and he said he would not be responsible. Follow me, he says. The camera follows him, and he goes up to a door that says, male talent, I think it said. And he opens the door, and conveniently, in the middle of the room, there's a guy sitting in the center of the room with his back to the door and headphones on so he can't hear anything. Somehow, Excalibur notes, that's Michael Nakazawa.
Well, it's Excalibur.
If
it were Jerry Lawler, this would be bullshit.
That actually makes sense. He is the smartest guy in wrestling. So Pac shuts the door behind him and apparently goes to murder Michael Nakazawa. Omega goes sprinting to the back, and they go to commercial.
Now listen, before you talk about the commercial, okay, there's a part of me that wants to just review the show and not talk about anything that happens during the breaks.
Okay. That's essentially what
I will
was
not
gonna
be
do.
that bitter.
All right.
I will help everyone out a little bit, okay?
Well, let me tell you what I wrote. There's shit going on, but I am skipping during the commercial.
Well, I wrote, they go to commercial, and a bunch of shit happens in a tiny inset promo on my iPad screen.
Yep.
Because I do, in fact, watch on my iPad. And no, I do not want to hear that I can watch on my big TV and it will be bigger. I want to watch it on my iPad.
Yes.
The YouTube TV app is far more convenient on the iPad. The resolution is much better on the iPad. I enjoy it more watching on the iPad, so I'm going to watch it on my fucking iPad.
We run down the card for tonight's show. Jim Ross has like a handicap or a disability where he can't just say Jungle Boy. Yes. His brain cannot process it. The best he can do is Jungle Jack Perry.
Yes. Well, wait till he starts talking about the alien Chris Statlander.
I'll get to there. So tonight on this show, it is Jungle Jack versus Chris Jericho, Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander, the Young Bucks versus SCU for the tag titles, and the Butcher and the Blade versus Cody and Darby Allin, which is right now. Brian, you mentioned it was inappropriate to declare your love for Rhea Ripley, given the age gap. I feel no such reserves about declaring my love for the Butcher.
Oh, he's great.
He's big, he's ugly, he's balding, he's got a big beer belly, but you know what? He looks like a guy who'd kick your ass.
Sure. And listen, there's a lot of big, kind of fat, angry-looking guys in wrestling, but he had to come up with a gimmick where he would stick out. Boy, did he ever.
Yes.
He's a 19th century butcher.
It's fantastic.
Now, the other guy, Pepper Parks the Blade, I'm not quite sure what it is. But I know he's the Blade because he's the skinny one.
He strikes me as so far as a competent indie guy.
Yes.
So, I'm watching AEW in 2019, and a chant breaks out. And I thought they were chanting something very, very, very rude about the bunny. A chant that you used to hear all the time back at the turn of the century. You don't anymore. And I was shocked and appalled, and I thought she was too. And then it turns out they were not chanting what I thought they were chanting, which was that she's got a specific disease. They were chanting, "We want Darby."
Yes.
Once I realized they were chanting that, I laughed and laughed and laughed to myself. So they're having a perfectly fine little tag match. And then the Butcher gets a cloverleaf. Cody is kicking him in the face. The Butcher is no-selling all of it. There's a crossroads. The bunny takes the ref. And after all of this, I wrote, too much happens to keep track of. And Cody pins Blade with a diving cutter. So there you go. Things were going along fine, and then it became a massive pile of overkill.
Well, the one thing with AEW is a lot of these matches, I feel like they go a few minutes too long.
That's a common theme. And honestly, that's a common theme in most wrestling in the year 2019.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. All I know is that Tony Khan, I don't know if he's still doing it. I presume he is. But like all of their early pay-per-views before TV, he timed out all of the shows. And he has been a fan forever, but he never was a wrestler. And so a non-wrestler timing out wrestlers' matches, I mean, it seems to me like he's giving some of these matches more time than they need based on who's in them.
Yeah. So as a result of this, because Darby and Cody won, Darby will get his rematch with Cody at some point. We have a Jungle Boy training video. He's doing a lot of running and jumping and weightlifting and stuff. Awesome Kong versus a random geek who was eventually identified as Miranda Alizé. Brandy does an inset promo where she says Awesome Kong will win. Later, Chris Statlander will win. And then she will join the Nightmare Collective. And then her mysterious bald guy walks in.
You know who that is, don't you?
I believe someone mentioned it's a Vampiro.
No.
Oh.
It's Dr. Luther.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Dr. Luther, 2019.
Well,
Yep.
It's good to know Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Yes. That is fantastic. So the match, it's entirely one back fist, one implant buster, and a pin. Melanie Cruz is the name of the woman who had been a fan who wanted to join the Nightmare Collective and gave up her hair. She's part of the act now. They cut more hair here off of Miranda Alizé, and the announcers still don't know what this means or what it symbolizes. It's been going on for weeks. Please have something happen in the storyline now. Jim Ross interviews Jungle Boy, asks if he is intimidated by Chris Jericho. Jungle Boy says he is aware of the pressure, but pressure creates greatness. And then Jim Ross asks, we know about your late father. If your dad was here right now, what do you think he would be thinking about you going against the world champion? Jungle Boy says, well, my dad and I talked about this many times. It would have been everything he wanted, and he would be very happy about it.
You know, I don't think this was because of our show, but literally on like Monday or Tuesday, somebody either called or texted in, and they said, why doesn't Jim Ross do sit-down interviews with these guys like he did in the 90s? Remember that one with Mick Foley? It got Mick Foley so over? Said, I don't know. They can do whatever they want. Well, here we are. Jim Ross does a sit-down interview with the Jungle Boy, and Jungle Boy can, in fact, speak. Well, we knew that before. But it's just a real-life feeling promo.
Yeah.
By a guy who comes off as the most likable dude that you want to get behind. Mm-hmm. It's great.
And it leads to Chris Jericho versus Jungle Boy. I believe it was Jungle Boy's mom, sister, and grandma in the crowd. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. They were fantastic. They were great cheerleaders. They had better facial expressions than Jungle Boy did, actually. So the story here, of course, is Le Champion against this young upstart. Hasn't even won a match coming into this. So Jericho hits the code breaker 2 minutes into this 10-minute time limit match. And now he's just laughing and having fun with it. Does another code breaker, pulls him up at 2. Even though he is completely winning, Jake Hager still interferes just to be a dick. So he brawls with Marco and Luchasaurus. They all get ejected. The whole time this is going on, the clock is still ticking down. And Jericho doesn't care. So Jericho's been around a long time. Which means, frankly, for a wrestler, he's getting pretty old. And he has that old wrestler body. But you know what? Pudgy old Chris Jericho can still do that Silver King dive just fine. But he misses the lion salt, and Jungle Boy is able to hit one for a 2 count. And then with 3 minutes to go, Jericho hits a powerbomb, and he gets the walls. 3 minutes to go. A powerbomb on the walls with 1:20 to go. So Jungle Boy just has to survive for 1:20. And Jericho's fighting and fighting, and he cranks and he cranks, and he sits back deeper and deeper. He drops to one knee at one point, and Jungle Boy's fighting for the ropes and fighting for the ropes. He almost gets them, and Jericho drags him back, and finally the clock expires. It is a time limit draw. Jungle Boy proved he can last with Jericho for 10 minutes. But Jericho first believes he has won. When he's informed it is a time limit draw, he is outraged. He demands 5 more minutes. In those 5 minutes, it goes about 2 minutes, really. And Jungle Boy rolls him up for 2 counts twice. Jericho changes his mind, grabs his belt, and leaves. So apparently, a count out when all is said and done.
I loved this. When they announced it, I thought of all of the different things that you could do. And I figured it's either, Jungle Boy pins him, or you go to a time limit draw to set up another match down the road. And What I did not even consider was the time limit draw. Jericho demands 5 more minutes. He gets rolled up twice, and he could take no more and walks out. That was awesome.
Yes.
There was one thing that I really did not like about this match, and that was when Jericho hit that second code breaker and lifted him up at 2. Okay? The whole story here is, can Jungle Boy last 10 minutes with Chris Jericho? Well, we know the answer. No, he can last 3 minutes because Jericho had him beaten and he pulled him up at 2. So the question is answered. He can't last 10 minutes with Chris Jericho. Now, before that spot, they did the spot where Jericho hit the code breaker and didn't make the cover. That I liked, okay? Because the story here is that Chris Jericho was so cocky that the Jungle Boy ended up lasting the 10-minute time limit, and he was foiled by his own pride.
Sure.
Okay?
That's a good story.
That story still works great without the cover. If Jericho hits his finish and the Jungle Boy appears to be dead, but Jericho just struts around, we presume that he could have beaten Jungle Boy, but guess what? We don't know. When Jericho hits the Codebreaker and pulls him up, we do know he pulled him up. So that spot right there, like as a fan, when they say, well, Jungle Boy lasted 10 minutes and thus he is going to get another match with Chris Jericho. Can he win? There's so much less intrigue for me because I've seen him beaten. Whereas without pulling him up at 2, I never would have seen that. And so there's still that intrigue of, you know what? Maybe Chris Jericho couldn't beat the Jungle Boy. So I didn't like him pulling the Jungle Boy up at 2. I loved everything else about this match. I even loved the interview after the break where Tony Schiavone says, "You seem upset, Chris." Jericho
this
says,
segment was so awesome.
"I'm not upset.
Yes.
I'm not upset. I told you all that the Jungle Boy couldn't beat me." Tony says, "No. You said he couldn't last 10 minutes with you." Jericho denies he ever said that.
No, I didn't, he says.
Even though he just asked for 5 more minutes. So he knew everything about this. He's just flat out lying. Tony gets on his case. Jericho finally just takes the mic away from him. Says, you're lucky I don't beat your ass. And then, of course, he says, it's not about Jungle Boy. The real story is Jon Moxley. Because, in fact, he has been embarrassed by the Jungle Boy. And he wants to just move on so we all forget about it. So somewhere down the road, they're going to be doing something to continue this story.
Sure.
And I just wish he hadn't pulled him up at 2. But it's not a deal breaker. Story was still great. His pride still caused his downfall.
Yes, the performance was still great.
It's still the same story to a very slightly lesser degree. And now he's just trying to also avoid Jon Moxley.
Yes. So this promo afterwards, where Schiavone's interviewing him, and he claims, "I told you Jungle Boy cannot beat Le Champion." And Tony, the voice of reason...
Yes, he's not some idiot on the main roster.
He has credibility, says, "No, you said he couldn't last 10 minutes. And the, "No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did." It was awesome.
It just harkens back to the old days.
Yes, here's what I wrote. Chris Jericho is a Georgia Championship Wrestling heel in 2020.
Well, I was thinking more about Tony. Like back when you had announcers who their job was to interview the heel. Mm-hmm. And if the heel lied, their job was to challenge the heel.
Yes.
You don't ever see that on the main roster, and it's infuriating. They just stand there, deer in the headlights, smile on their faces,
and
the heel
thoughts?
walks off. Sucks.
Yes.
This was great.
This was interaction. This was a conversation.
And keep in mind, Tony's the one last week who went up to Cody and said, "Cody, cut the bullshit. What do you have to say about MJF?" That's what we're all thinking.
Yes. So yes, Jericho does change the subject as quickly as he can. Talks about Moxley. He says, "This is about our good friend Jon Moxley and whether he will join the Inner Circle." He makes it clear there is no Dynamite next week because of Christmas Day, but there is one in 2 weeks on New Year's Day in Jacksonville. At that show, the Inner Circle will have a giant surprise for Moxley. All he has to do is say yes. Merry Christmas, Mox, from all of us here in the Inner Circle. Jen Decker is interviewing SCU, where she starts to when the Lucha Brothers interrupt. They say they don't think Chris Daniels has it anymore, and they have a phone or a tablet with a clip of Daniels botching the Arabian Press and landing on his head.
Yes.
And Daniels steps up to him, but then he's got nothing to say, and he hangs his head, and he leaves. So God bless them. They're turning this into the story.
You know, it's really weird. I actually don't know what's going on. Because when I watched him botch it, I just couldn't figure out what went wrong. And the only thing I could conclude was he can't jump anymore. And so, if that's your conclusion, then your conclusion is, in fact, that maybe he doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Now, I had other people that once they saw this, they were like, well, the reason you couldn't figure out why it got botched was because it was on purpose. Like, this is all storyline. The way they did it, they either are playing 4D chess, where they did a botch, and, like, the story is, we're not going to sell the botch, and we're just going to get in the ring and continue the match. Which, you know, it's ridiculous, but it does make you think the guy doesn't have it anymore. So, I loved this. And I also love that I don't know what's going on. I actually don't know if he really botched it or not.
I love that there was an incident. Whether it was a work or a shoot is irrelevant. Something happened in the match. We all saw it. And as a result of this, characters are reacting in realistic, believable, relatable ways.
It's leading to something.
This all makes sense.
And it's not something stupid like when Titus O'Neil tripped and fell into the ring or whatever. And so they had to make it into some stupid comedy thing, and that was the end of his career.
No, Daniels is not going to be the new Shockmaster.
No.
He's not going to fall on his head every match to botching this move. Speaking of botched moves, Chris Statlander and Britt Baker. I guess it wasn't so much botched moves as just poorly executed, badly...
It wasn't that bad.
They were on very different pages.
It wasn't great.
There were... Britt had her in some kind of hold, and Chris escaped, and so Britt just froze and just lied there, basically. And then later... Chris made a comeback where the comeback started by her taking a move. Baker hit her with some kind of big slam, and Chris goes splat on the mat and pops up and starts running wild. She gets Baker up on her shoulder, or up for a fireman's carry. Baker escapes the fireman's carry with a series of elbows to the shoulder. So throughout the show, by the way, there was what appeared to be a glitch in the opening match where briefly the Evil Uno appeared on the screen with a joindarkorder.com tag. Here, the Join Dark Order thing again appeared at the bottom of the screen. The announcers didn't know what was going on. The match was not very good. It went too long. There was a great finish where Baker went for the lockjaw, which is her version of the mandible claw, where she also has like almost a Rings of Saturn on there at the same time. But Statlander is big and strong, and so she cradled her as Baker was on her back, herked her up into the sky, and turned it into the Big Bang Theory, which is a cradle tombstone that is absolutely terrifying, and she pinned her. So the finish was great, at least. Shivani then interviews Statlander, who as of right now is the number one contender to Riho's title, who has not been on the show, it seems, in forever. I don't remember the last time Riho wrestled. So Statlander's gimmick is that she's an alien. Or at least she thinks she's an alien, or she pretends to be an alien. So she doesn't speak to people. She boops them by touching her nose and then touching their nose. So she does this to Tony Schiavone. Then before he can say anything, out comes Brandy. And Brandy asks Jon Moxley if he'll join the Inner Circle. No, wait. She asks Chris Statlander if she'll join the Nightmare Collective. Because there's too many very similar things going on in this show. Statlander gave her a negative boop, which I forget what that actually means, but that's what I wrote. And so Kong and Cruz come out, and Brandy hits Statlander with his shoe, and the crowd is indifferent. Somebody named Sadie Gibbs made a save. This sucked.
You know what's weird is I didn't watch Dark this week, but somebody told me that Chris Statlander did a interview on Dark in just plain normal English.
She's not a very good alien.
Well, I'm just like, so you're telling me that she's an alien on national television, but she's a normal person on Dark? Shouldn't it be the other way around?
I don't know.
Don't ask me.
Sean Spears and Tully Blanchard do a backstage promo. They put over the tag...
This is getting wacky.
They put over the tag team division because tag team matches matter here. You can make big money, but they need the right guy. And Tully talks about how you need to be in the right wavelength. I could look at her and just give him a look. And we both knew what the other guy was going to do. They agree to keep scouting. We have a Young Bucks video package. It starts with the opening All Elite Wrestling press conference in February 7th, 2019, where the Young Bucks say they want to have the best tag team division in the world. And then it shows SCU running wild, and Proud and Powerful running wild, and the Lucha Brothers running wild. But then they got to admit, they have not been the best tag team in the business. And then the build for the main event of the show is the challengers losing over and over and over and over again. I realize they won last week. I don't think that was shown. It certainly was not shown enough. So then they start talking about how we are friends with SCU. They're going to be coming over for Christmas dinner. But friends or not, Wednesday is their time to shine. And it's going on and on. And finally, I gave up. I didn't care. I started to skip ahead. And suddenly, they're all in the ring. They edited out entrances to show that video package. I was flummoxed.
Well, the most important part of the video package was them saying, we keep telling you that we're the best in the world, but there's a lot of teams better than us right now, and quite frankly, we feel like we're lying to you. And so tonight, it's about winning the tag team titles and proving that we are, in fact, the best in the world. So it is a storyline. It is now a storyline, what everybody has been saying. How come the Young Bucks are supposed to be the best in the world, yet all they do is lose in AEW? That's the story. Which leads to, in fact, the Young Bucks losing a tag team championship match.
Not just that. So, first of all, the fans randomly decide this match is awesome, even though it's the third tag match on the show. It was not the worst tag match on the show, but it was not the best either. Lucha Brothers match was much better than this. So, they're doing some stuff, and after several minutes, SCU does a double Dragon Sleeper spot. Which there's the champions putting the supposed heroes in double submissions. It should be a really cool match spot. It gets zero reaction. And I watched NXT first, so I had already seen Rhea Ripley, and I was like, I'm sitting back and saying, look at these two shows. One challenger was put over for essentially all year as an unbeatable force who's finally going to get what is rightfully theirs. The other challengers are a pair of losers who got this match essentially on a fluke via one narrow win last week. And I was supposed to believe they're the best in the world, whereas in fact they're getting stopped. No wonder they didn't win the ratings. Like, which of these shows would you watch based on that information? I wouldn't watch the losers. I would watch the winner. So, eventually, everyone broke their necks in this match, I think. Everyone fell on their head in a very terrifying manner. SCU...
The only one I noticed was Matt taking that German or whatever.
There was a suplex
right on his head. It was brutal.
Somebody fell on their head on the floor, and SCU hit a bunch of moves and hit the SCU later and won.
I was baffled.
This was like, by the end, this was an extended squash.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I was completely caught off guard by the SCU later. Like, he hit it, and I figured they would keep wrestling, but it was a 3.
It was a 3.
I went, what?
They hit a move, and 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 they hit their finish, and they won. Like, the Young Bucks should not challenge again until summer at the very earliest. Here at the bottom of the rankings right now. So, the match is over. They are, in fact, friends. They begin to shake hands.
You know what, though, Vinny? I will give one positive about this. They lost this match, and that will be the story, that they are losers. Now, if you want to argue that the story that the Young Bucks are losers is a horrible story, okay, that's fine.
That's more my point.
But, I hate to do whataboutism, but if this were the main roster, it is very possible they would be getting another championship match.
Oh, of course.
Next
Naturally.
week, or on the pay-per-view, or none of this would matter.
They would lose clean to the champions to build to a rematch.
Whatever you think about the storyline that the Young Bucks are losers, at least we can confidently state that the storyline is they're losers.
Yes.
And they're going to have to figure out how to not be losers.
There will be ramifications for all this losing these losers have been doing.
That's at least a positive to this. Now, should they be losers? Fuck no. What's happening here?
I don't know. I don't understand. So the creepers surround the ring. They come through the crowd. There's like a dozen dudes out there. The lights go out. Dark Order appears on the stage. The two of them, Evil Uno and Stu. Evil Uno congratulates the SCU on their win, but says, Young Bucks, you had suffered yet another loss. Now, on any other night, we would ask you to join the Dark Order, but tonight is not recruitment. Tonight is initiation. Creepers, put them down. And the creepers hit the ring. There's, like I say, about a dozen of them. There's the 4 dudes in the ring. They beat them all up. Alex Reynolds and John Silver are in there without masks. Thank God the announcers were there to tell me who they were, because I would have had no clue otherwise. Daniels runs out to save his friends. He gets swarmed. The crowd softly boos. Omega saves Cody and Dustin. None of them can help, or none of them can win. They're all outmanned. Excalibur points out Adam Page is not out to help the rest of the elite. So two things.
Well, he's left the Elite.
Didn't he leave the Elite? I could have
Yes,
sworn
that's kind of the story.
that they told us he had left the Elite because we've never actually seen the Elite as a unit or doing anything unless you watch the wacky YouTube show. I don't watch the wacky YouTube show. I watch AEW Dynamite. So this goes on for a while. It's clearly not working.
Oh, was it ever not working?
And by the end, I was left like this was pushed as a big show for a couple weeks, and the closing angle to the big show is that the losers in the masks are now feuding with the losers in the tassels.
Well, I mean, what I got out of this was the storyline. This is not me saying this like when the 24/7 geeks run out. The storyline is that the Dark Order are geeks. That's how you join.
Yes.
You are a loser, and thus, so it's a group of losers. And granted, the losers, I guess, had the man advantage, mostly because the baby faces did what the heels usually do in martial arts movies. You run out one at a time and get killed, instead of like running out all at the same time. So like one guy ran out, he got killed. One guy ran out, got killed. Two guys ran out, they got killed. They were always outnumbered, okay? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you had every single top star killed by a bunch of geeks. That's how the show went off the air after you beat the Young Bucks. Now, it wasn't that bad. I know some people, I mean, everyone's talking about how Dave called this a tipping point. I don't think I can go that far. I don't think it was that bad. I certainly don't think that it was good. And I think one of the things about it, I like the Dark Order vignettes.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the problems with the whole thing is Evil Uno, first off, his name is the Evil One. Evil Uno.
Right.
Too campy, okay?
It's still a better name than Stu.
Second off, Evil Uno is not a great promo. I feel like if you're going to be the leader of this diabolical group, you got to be like a great promo. He's just a promo, okay? And third, and I admit, maybe it's just me, okay? His fucking mask, every time I see it, I think of Shark Boy.
No, it's good. There's a similarity.
And Shark Boy, who was Shark Boy? He was never a big-time main eventer or anything close.
No.
He was a comedy guy.
This...
There's a guy out there in a Shark Boy mask that cuts average promos, and he's the leader of a troop of geeks, okay?
Yes.
This would be totally fine feuding with a Sean Spears or whoever in the mid-card. But this crew destroying all of your top baby faces is not working.
This is a mid-card comedy act.
I wouldn't go as far as say comedy act, but it's certainly not a main event act.
I would say it's a comedy act.
It's a mid-card act.
His name is Evil Uno, and his friend Stu, and their
Well,
losers,
yeah,
the Creepers. It was. I was totally
Mild comedy.
I was totally into it for something interesting about a team that was going to be lower on the card.
Yes.
As a main event destroyer of worlds, no,
Not working.
no.
And the fans told you last night
No.
that they did not think that it was working. And, you know, the thing is also, I don't know who is going to finally take off the mask, and it's going to be a star, okay? I mean, they very clearly, Alex Reynolds and John Silver, they did not unmask to reveal who they were. They weren't wearing masks, okay? So they've never had the spot where one of the creepers pulls his mask up and he's a big star, okay? Maybe if it's Kenny Omega, that will give this group credibility. Maybe. But he's done too many jobs, okay?
But that's how you get into the Dark Order.
I don't think it's going to be the Young Bucks. My point is, I just have this feeling it's going to be the Hangman. And the reality is, the Hangman has not been lighting the world on fire. He had a good promo with the cowboy shit thing. But I mean, even this week, the announcers are talking about how he's lost his way or he hasn't been the same since the Jericho match.
But that's the point, though.
I know that, but like, that's not a big enough deal to make the Dark Order into something big. Having Hangman as the big star to appear with the group. Do you understand?
I do.
He's not a big enough
But
star.
I don't know what star you could...
I don't know either. Kenny Omega, maybe.
But then you have to make Omega lose over and over. Which I guess they've been doing anyway.
He's already been doing that. It could be Kenny Omega.
He did lose on this show, didn't he?
Listen, this act is not working. I don't think this is WCW. We're fucking watching WCW every week.
This
okay?
is not WCW.
This is not WCW. Yes, it was an angle that didn't get over. Yes, I think that the Young Bucks and even Cody, although he didn't win on this show, all the big stars need to start winning, and they need to start being stars. I understand that you started from scratch, and you want to use what star power they have to try to elevate everybody else because you need a roster, okay? But we're 12 weeks in. It's time for the stars to start being the stars.
Damn it.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we even need to do a big speech?
Brian,
I think it's patently obvious.
I'm going to vote for NXT.
Yes,
And
NXT the winner this week.
This was the first, I think, 10-8 round.
This was the first, there's not even an argument.
Yeah. It was not close to it.
NXT was the better show. They win this week. I think in our polling, it's still AEW well ahead.
I've got it.
Much like in the demos.
Totals right here. AEW 13, NXT 8 with 3 ties. So in the long term, AEW is still ahead. But in the past month, it's
NXT has been picking up ground.
In the past month, it's NXT 7-1.
Very much like the ratings, actually.
Well, frankly, there's a reason the ratings are up. The show's better.
Very much like the ratings. All right, everybody, that's it. We're going to wrap it up for today. Vinny and I will be back on Sunday night. Will we ever? And we'll be talking about Superstars of Wrestling. Granny will join us.